In this third part, we will look at the main changes that occur when the cochlea is damaged. If the inner hair cells are damaged, then the cochlear's detection mechanism doesn't work, so any movement within the cochlea won't be able to be transmitted to the auditory nerve, and those sounds correspond to the damaged region of the cochlea won't be heard. If the outer hair cells are damaged, the detectors, or inner hair cells, may still be working, but the amplifier won't be. This has three main effects: reduced sensitivity, loudness recruitment, and reduced frequency selectivity, and we'll look at each of these components in turn. If the outer hair cells are damaged or not functioning as well, there are two main physiological consequences within the cochlea. First of all, low intensity sounds can't move the basilar membrane sufficiently for the inner hair cells to detect that movement. This results in us not being able to hear low intensity sounds such as whispers or quiet speech. When the intensity is sufficient for the movement to be detected by the inner hair cells, the movement is more spread out along the cochlea, so the cochlea cannot separate different frequency components from each other so easily. These changes in the properties of the ear have three effects on our perception of sound. When outer hair cells are damaged, low intensity sounds can't move the basilar membrane sufficiently for the inner hair cells to detect the movement, so these sounds will be inaudible. In other words, that our ability to detect such sounds is impaired, or our audiometric threshold is raised. Outer hair cell damage also means that the range of sound intensities we can hear is reduced. Low intensity sounds are inaudible, and higher intensity sounds may be just audible. However, for very high intensity ones, a contribution from the outer hair cells isn't needed, and such sounds are heard at normal, i.e. uncomfortable loudness. In other words, our perception of loudness from just audible to too loud occurs over a smaller range of sound intensities, so a small change in intensity results in a bigger jump in loudness than normal. This is called loudness recruitment. As well as increasing the sensitivity of the ear, the outer hair cells also increase the frequency selectivity, the ability of the ear to pick out individual frequency components of a sound. If the outer hair cells are damaged, the frequency selectivity is reduced. The ear is less able to pick out individual frequencies of a speech sound in the presence of competing or background noise. The effect of this is that people with outer hair cell damage often complain about difficulties with understanding speech in a noisy environment. So what does this mean? Well, when we get outer hair cell damage, the ability to hear certain speech sounds might be reduced, especially many of the consonant sounds that are important for speech intelligibility. Sounds such as s, sh, f are low intensity and may not be audible. Our perception of loudness is altered, such that changes in sound intensity result in an abnormally large jump in loudness. The range between just audible and too loud is much reduced, which is important when fitting hearing aids. We want to amplify the low intensity sounds to make them audible, but amplify the high level sounds much less so they aren't uncomfortably loud. Also, the ability of our hearing to pick out different frequencies from others deteriorates. For example, we can't separate out speech components from background noise, so competing speakers aren't separated so easily. So can a hearing aid help? When fitting hearing aids, we can currently compensate for two of these aspects. Low intensity sounds can be amplified to make them audible. The hearing aids can amplify more for low intensity sounds than for high intensity sounds, so that high intensity ones don't become too loud, and this tries to restore the normal loudness perception. However, hearing aids can't currently restore frequency selectivity, so users may be okay in the quiet, but still struggle to understand speech in background noise.